I too am helping take care of the baby and enjoying my life with my wonderful family.
I never expected to be sitting in this dim law office, staring at words that somehow hurt more than all the years of subtle cruelty combined. The paper trembled slightly in my hands as I read the line again. To our mistake, Sarah. Nothing. 5 simple words that confirmed what I'd always suspected but never wanted to believe. The irony wasn't lost on me. For the past 5 years, I'd been sending $5,000 every month to keep my family afloat. That's $300,000 of my hard-earned money, poured into a bottomless pit of ingratitude. And now, sitting in this leather chair that probably cost more than my first car, I was officially nothing. Miss Evans? Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer, cleared his throat. Would you like a moment? I looked up, meeting his careful gaze. He was trying to be professional, but I could see the discomfort in his eyes. He'd known my family for years, had watched this drama unfold from the sidelines. Now he was forced to be the messenger of my mother's final act of rejection. No, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Please continue. He shuffled his papers, clearly relieved to move on. As he droned on about the distribution of assets between my father and my sister Marie, I let my mind drift back to where this all began. 5 years ago, I was just starting to find my footing in life. At 25, I had launched my own financial consulting firm. It wasn't much, just me, a laptop, and a tiny office above a Chinese restaurant in downtown Seattle. The smell of Kung Pao chicken would waft up through the floorboards every day around noon, but the rent was cheap, and I was determined to make it work. Then came the call that changed everything. Sarah. My mother's voice had been uncharacteristically fragile that evening. We need to talk about something important. I remember sitting straighter in my chair, my stomach tightening. Important in my family usually meant bad news. Your father's company, there's been a problem. She paused, and I could hear her struggling to maintain composure. The investment didn't pan out. We're going to lose everything. The investment. I'd warned them about that. Dad's company had sunk most of their capital into a risky venture, despite my advice against it. I'd spent years studying finance, had even worked at one of the top investment firms before starting my own business. But what did I know? I was just the daughter who disappointed them by not following the traditional path they'd laid out. How bad is it? I asked, already dreading the answer. We can't make the mortgage payment this month. Her voice cracked. The credit cards are maxed out. Your father, he's not handling it well. I closed my eyes, knowing what was coming next. The subtle guilt trip, the implied responsibility. I'd seen this pattern my entire life, just never on this scale. Sarah, I hate to ask, but how much do you need? The number she quoted made my heart stop. $5,000. That was almost everything I had in my business account. Money I'd been saving to expand my company, to finally move out of that cramped office with its perpetual smell of Chinese food. But they were family. And in our family, that word carried weight. It meant obligation, duty, sacrifice, especially from me. I'll transfer it right now, I heard myself say. That first transfer was supposed to be a one-time thing, just enough to help them get back on their feet. But 1 month turned into 2, then 3, then 12. Each time there was a new crisis, a new reason why they couldn't make ends meet. And each time, I opened my banking app and sent another $5,000. Meanwhile, my sister Marie flourished. She had followed the path our parents wanted, married well, had the perfect suburban life, never took any risks, She didn't have to worry about our parents' financial struggles. That burden fell squarely on my shoulders. The lake house goes to Marie. Mr. Patterson's voice cut through my memories, along with the summer cottage in Maine and your mother's jewelry collection. I felt a bitter smile tug at my lips. The lake house. I'd spent the last 2 summers paying for its maintenance, fixing the roof, updating the plumbing, all while Marie hosted elaborate parties there, playing the role of the perfect daughter. The remaining liquid assets will be divided between your father and Marie, with a 7,030 split in your father's favor. Mr. Patterson paused, glancing at me apologetically. That concludes the major points of the will. I sat there, letting the reality sink in. 5 years of support, of sacrificing my own dreams to keep them afloat, and this was my reward. To be officially labeled as the mistake in my mother's last words. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably another text from Dad about this month's mortgage payment. It was due in 3 days. He'd been reminding me all week, as if I might forget my familial duty. With steady hands, I pulled out my phone. Mr. Patterson was still talking. Something about signing papers, but I wasn't listening anymore. I opened my banking app, navigated to the recurring payments section, and found the one labeled Family Support. 1 tap. That's all it would take to end 5 years of financial drain. 1 tap to finally say enough. Miss Evans? Mr. Patterson's voice seemed distant. Do you have any questions about the will? I looked up from my phone, meeting his gaze. Just one, I said quietly. When does this become official? The will? It's effective immediately. I nodded, then pressed my thumb against the screen. Cancel payment. Confirm? Yes. Standing up, I smoothed down my skirt and picked up my purse. Thank you for your time, Mr. Patterson. I trust you'll inform my father and Marie of the details. He blinked, caught off guard by my calm demeanor. Yes, of course. But don't you want to discuss this with your family? Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I cut him off gently. The will is perfectly clear. I'm the mistake, and mistakes don't pay bills. As I walked toward the door, my phone started buzzing again. Dad's name flashed on the screen, probably wondering why I wasn't answering his texts about the mortgage. For the first time in 5 years, I hit decline. Outside, Seattle's perpetual rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and clean. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. My mother's final words had hurt, yes, but they'd also freed me. No more pretending, no more obligation, no more draining my resources to fuel their lifestyle. I had built something from nothing once before, starting with just a laptop and a dream in a tiny office above a Chinese restaurant. I could do it again, but this time without the weight of family expectations holding me back. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Marie. Where are you? Dad's trying to reach you about the mortgage. I typed out a reply, then paused, considering my words carefully. Finally, I wrote, Tell Dad the mistake is done fixing your problems. Time to solve them yourself. Then I blocked their numbers, slipped my phone back into my pocket, and walked toward my car. It was time to start writing my own story, one where I wasn't the mistake but the masterpiece. But this was just the beginning. What I didn't know then was that my family's reaction to being cut off would spark a chain of events that would change everything. Their desperate attempts to regain control, their manipulation tactics, and ultimately, their shocking discovery about who I'd become while they were busy dismissing me. All of that was yet to come. For now, though, I just drove home, watching Seattle's skyline grow larger in my windshield. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face them on my own terms. The office above the Chinese restaurant was long gone, replaced by a modern space in a high-rise downtown. But sometimes, when I needed a reminder of how far I'd come, I'd order Kung Pao chicken and smile, remembering the girl who started with nothing but determination. That girl wasn't a mistake. She was a force of nature. And now, finally, she was free. The first sign that my family had discovered the canceled payments came 3 days later. I was in my office, reviewing a potential acquisition deal, when my assistant Oliver buzzed in. "Miss Evans? Your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you." I glanced at my computer screen. Exactly 72 hours since the mortgage payment was due. Right on schedule. "How insistent?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "He's threatening to call security if they don't let him up." Should I? "No," I cut in, saving my work. "I'll handle this. Send him to conference room P and make sure recording is on." 5 years of managing my family's finances had taught me one thing: always keep records. Something told me I'd need them soon. The conference room was all glass and chrome, with views of Seattle's skyline that usually impressed clients. My father stood at the window, his reflection showing a face I barely recognized. Gone was the confident businessman who dismissed my career choices. In his place stood someone desperate, angry, and dangerous. "The mortgage payment bounced," he said without turning around. "Yes. Your mother just died, Sarah." He finally faced me, using the guilt card he'd played so many times before. "Is this really how you want to honor her memory?" I sat down at the conference table, gesturing for him to do the same. He remained standing. "Mom made her feelings clear in the will," I said calmly. "To quote exactly, 'To our mistakes, Sarah.' Nothing. That was just." He waved his hand dismissively. "Your mother was upset about some things. You know how she got. But this isn't about that. This is about family." "Family," I repeated the word slowly. "Like how you and Marie got everything while I got labeled a mistake." His face darkened. "You're being childish. We need that money. The mortgage is no longer my problem." I stood up, matching his stance. "I've sent you $300,000 over the past 5 years. Money that could have grown my business, bought my own house, built my future. Instead, it went into a black hole of ingratitude." "Ingratitude?" His voice rose sharply. "We gave you everything: an education, opportunities." "That I paid for myself." I cut in. "Full scholarship to college. Worked 3 jobs to cover expenses. The only thing you gave me was the constant reminder that I wasn't good enough." He slammed his hand on the table. The sound echoed through the room, but I didn't flinch. "You ungrateful little." He caught himself, visibly trying to regain control. "Fine. How much?" "Excuse me. How much to make this right? You want a share of the inheritance? Name your price." I laughed, and the sound seemed to startle him more than anger would have. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. This is about respect, about recognition. Things you and Mom never thought I deserved." "What do you want then?" His voice had turned calculating. I recognized that tone. It was the same one he used in business negotiations. "Nothing," I said simply. "I want nothing from you. No money, no relationship, no family obligations. I'm done." His face went through a series of emotions: shock, anger, and finally, the one I'd been waiting for: fear. "You can't do this," he whispered. "The house? Everything. We'll lose it all." "Probably," I agreed. "Unless Marie steps up. She got the inheritance after all. I'm sure she'll be happy to help." The mention of Marie seemed to trigger something. He pulled out his phone, fingers shaking slightly as he dialed. I could hear it ringing on speaker. "Daddy?" Marie's voice filled the room. "Did you talk to her? Did you fix it?" "Marie," he said, eyes locked on me. "Your sister is being difficult. Perhaps if you spoke to her, put her on." I shook my head, already heading for the door. "Goodbye, Dad. Good luck with the mortgage." His voice stopped me at the threshold. "I'll tell everyone," he threatened. "All your business contacts, your clients. They'll know what kind of person you really are, abandoning your family like this." I turned back, smiling. "Go ahead. Tell them how your younger daughter paid your bills for 5 years while you gave everything to her sister. Tell them how you labeled her a mistake in her mother's will. Tell them exactly why she finally said enough." I closed the door on his stunned face, but I could still hear Marie's voice through the glass. "Daddy? What do we do now?" Back in my office, I buzzed Oliver. Cancel all my appointments for the rest of the day. And Oliver? If any of my family members try to come up again, call security immediately. Yes, Miss Evans. Also, your sister Marie has called 6 times in the last hour. Block her number and send in the acquisition papers for the Thompson deal. I need something to focus on. I spent the next few hours buried in work, but my phone kept lighting up with messages from unknown numbers. My family trying to reach me through different lines, each one more desperate than the last. "Sarah, please. We'll lose everything. This isn't what Mom would have wanted. You can't just abandon us like this. The bank is threatening foreclosure." I blocked each number methodically, but one message from Marie made me pause. "Fine. Be that way. But don't come crying to us when your precious company fails. Nobody succeeds alone." She was wrong about that. I had succeeded alone. Every step of the way, from that tiny office above the Chinese restaurant to my current success. I'd done it without their help. In fact, I'd done it despite their constant undermining. That evening, I stayed late at the office, watching the sun set over Elliott Bay. My phone had finally gone quiet, but I knew this wasn't over. My family wasn't used to being denied anything, especially by me. They would escalate, try to find ways to pressure me, attempt to use my business contacts against me. What they didn't know was that I was prepared. 5 years of supporting them had taught me to document everything. Every transfer, every text message begging for money, every email promising it would be the last time. I had it all safely stored away. I also had something else they didn't know about: leverage. The Thompson deal I was reviewing wasn't just any acquisition. It was for a property management company that happened to handle several of Dad's business properties. Properties that were already struggling due to his financial mismanagement. If they wanted to play hardball, they'd learned that the mistake had learned a few tricks of her own. My computer pinged with an email notification. It was from Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer. "Miss Evans, your father has requested a family meeting to discuss recent developments. He suggests tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the lake house. Marie and her husband will be present. Please consider attending to resolve this situation amicably. Regards, James Patterson." I hit reply. "Mr. Patterson, thank you for the invitation, but I must decline. As the lake house now belongs to Marie, I have no right to be there. As for resolving this situation, I believe Moms will make everything perfectly clear. Best regards, Sarah Evans, CEO, Evans Consulting Group. I added my full title deliberately. Let them see what the mistake had built while they were busy dismissing her. Just then, Oliver knocked on my door. Miss Evans? You should see this. He handed me his tablet, open to a local business news website. The headline made my blood run cold. Evans drama. Local business estimated ACUSES DUEHER of financial abandonment. There was my father, quoted extensively about how his ungrateful daughter had cut off support for her grieving family, how I'd taken advantage of their trust, then abandoned them in their time of need. The article even mentioned my company by name. So this was their play. They thought they could shame me back into line, damage my business reputation until I had no choice but to give in. What they failed to understand was that shame only works if you accept it, and I was done accepting their version of reality. I handed the tablet back to Oliver. Call PR. It's time to tell our side of the story. The next few days would change everything. My family thought they could pressure me into submission, but they were about to learn that the daughter they dismissed for so long had become someone they couldn't afford to antagonize. Their attempts to damage my reputation would backfire spectacularly, leading to revelations that would shake our family's foundations. But that was tomorrow's battle. For now, I had work to do, starting with a call to the Thompson Group about accelerating our acquisition timeline. The PR war my father started backfired spectacularly within 48 hours. I hadn't planned to make our family drama public, but since he opened that door, I walked right through it. My company's PR team released a simple statement, a detailed record of every payment I'd made to my family over the past 5 years, alongside a copy of the relevant section of my mother's will. No emotional commentary, no accusations, just cold, hard facts with a single question at the end. Who really abandoned whom? The public response was immediate and overwhelming. Local business forums exploded with discussions. The same news outlet that had published my father's accusations now ran a follow-up piece. Family financial abuse, the dark side of filial obligation. But I wasn't done yet. The Thompson acquisition papers are ready, Oliver announced, placing a thick folder on my desk. They're offering a 15% discount if we close by the end of the month. I smiled, opening the folder. Thompson Properties managed 60% of my father's business real estate. Once this deal went through, I would effectively become his landlord. Schedule the signing for next week, I said, then paused. And Oliver? Make sure my father receives an invitation. He should know who his new property manager is going to be. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. My family tried everything to regain control. Marie showed up at my office twice, only to be turned away by security. My father attempted to contact my major clients, but my reputation for integrity spoke louder than his desperate accusations. Then came the text that changed everything. It was from my father's business partner, Michael. Sarah, you need to see this. Your father's trying to sell the company. Attached was a photo of a contract. My father was planning to sell his remaining business assets at a fraction of their worth to a holding company I'd never heard of. It seemed desperate until I looked closer and recognized Marie's husband's signature on the incorporation papers. They were trying to hide assets. I forwarded the evidence to my lawyers, then made a call to the one person who could help me understand what was really happening. An hour later, I sat across from Michael in a quiet cafe 3 blocks from my office. He looked tired, older than his 50 years. It's worse than we thought, he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. Your father, he's been moving money around for years. The investment that supposedly failed, it didn't. He shifted the profits to offshore accounts, then claimed bankruptcy to avoid paying investors. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's fraud. Michael nodded grimly. The SEC's been sniffing around. Your father knew. It was only a matter of time before they found something. That's why he needed your money, to cover the gaps in the books. And now that I've cut him off, he's desperate. The sale to Marie's shell company is his last attempt to hide whatever's left before everything crashes down. I stared at the USB drive, feeling the weight of its contents. Why are you showing me this? Michael's eyes met mine. Because I was there when you were born. I watched you grow up, watched them dismiss every achievement, every success. You deserved better. I slipped the drive into my purse, my mind already racing with possibilities. Thank you, Michael. What are you going to do? I stood up, dropping enough cash on the table to cover both our coffees. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Back at my office, I reviewed the documents Michael had provided. The evidence was damning. Years of systematic fraud, all carefully documented. My father hadn't just been stealing from investors. He'd been stealing from his own company, his employees' pension fund, even his partners. I made 2 calls. One to the SEC, arranging a meeting for the next morning. The second to Mr. Patterson. Miss Evans, he answered on the first ring. I was just about to call you. Let me guess, another family meeting? Yes, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your father insists it's urgent. I checked my calendar, already knowing I was free. The lake house again? Actually, no. Your father's office. He says it's about the future of the family business. Perfect. Tell him I'll be there. The next morning, I met with SEC investigators, turning over everything Michael had provided. They were particularly interested in the attempted asset transfer to Marie's shell company. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked into my father's office building for what I knew would be the last time. The receptionist directed me to the main conference room, where I found my father, Marie, her husband James, and Mr. Patterson already waiting. Sarah, my father stood, attempting a smile. Thank you for coming. We have a proposition that could benefit everyone. I took a seat, noting the thick contract in front of Marie. I'm listening. We're restructuring the family business, he began. Marie and James have created a new holding company. We want to transfer all assets to this new entity, with you receiving a 15% stake. In return, we need you to resume me the monthly payments and publicly retract your recent statements. I picked up the contract, pretending to read it carefully. And if I refuse, Marie leaned forward. Then you get nothing. No stake in the company, no share in any future profits. You'll be completely cut off from the family fortune. What family fortune? I asked quietly. The one Dad hid in offshore accounts, or the one he stole from his investors. The room went deadly silent. My father's face turned pale. What are you talking about? Marie demanded, but I could see fear creeping into her eyes. The SEC is very interested in that question, I said, standing up. In fact, they should be arriving any minute now. I had a fascinating meeting with them this morning. The sound of elevator doors opening echoed down the hall, followed by multiple footsteps. You didn't, my father whispered. Actually, I did. But don't worry, I made sure they got everything. The offshore accounts, the fraudulent bankruptcy, Even this latest attempt to hide assets through Marie's company. Consider it my final gift to the family. The conference room door opened. 3 SEC agents entered, followed by 2 police officers. Henry Evans, one agent stepped forward. "We have a warrant for your arrest." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. My father, trying to delete something on his phone before an agent snatched it away. Marie, screaming that I had no right, that I was destroying the family. Her husband, attempting to flee before being stopped at the elevator. Mr. Patterson just sat there, shaking his head slowly. "I should have known," he muttered. All those years of meticulous record-keeping. I watched as they led my father away in handcuffs, Marie and James following shortly after as material witnesses. The family empire, built on lies and manipulation, crumbled in less than an hour. Outside, reporters had already gathered. Someone must have tipped them off. As I walked to my car, I heard my father's voice one last time. "Sarah, you can't do this. We're family." I turned back, meeting his eyes. "No, Dad. I'm just the mistake, remember?" And this mistake just corrected a lot of wrongs. 3 months later, I sat in my office, reviewing the final report from the SEC investigation. My father had been sentenced to 15 years for fraud and embezzlement. Marie and James got lighter sentences for their roles in the attempted asset concealment. The lake house and other properties were seized and sold to repay investors. Oliver knocked on my door. "Miss Evans? The Thompson deal is complete. You now officially own the management rights to all former Evans Properties buildings." I nodded, closing the SEC file. "Schedule a meeting with the tenants. I want to discuss modernization plans and potential rent adjustments. Also," he hesitated, "there's a letter from your father." I held out my hand, taking the prison-stamped envelope. Inside was a single page. "Sarah, I understand now what you meant about respect, about recognition. I'm sorry it took losing everything to see what we had in you. Dad." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond, but not today. Today, I had a company to run and a future to build. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. "Saw the Thompson deal announcement. Your grandfather would be proud." I smiled, remembering the only family member who had ever believed in me. He'd called me his $1,000,000 mistake once, teasing my parents about their short-sightedness. Looking out over the Seattle skyline from my office window, I realized he was wrong. I wasn't a $1,000,000 mistake. I was a $1 billion success story. And I had done it my way, without their help, without their approval, and finally, without their chains holding me back. The mistake had become a masterpiece, and that was the greatest revenge of all.
My husband yelled at me on the phone, saying he wants a divorce. I thought as I came back from my work trip. He's fed up with me, but I've had enough too. If I say sorry, maybe he'll change his mind. "I understand," I said to him on the phone. But instead of going to my husband's parents' house where he was, I went somewhere else. My name is Sophie, and I'm 28 years old. I got married to David, who is 2 years older than me, 3 years ago. To be frank, David is the son of the future CEO of the company where I work. Originally, I worked somewhere else, but after marrying David, I changed jobs. Now, I'm working hard in the same company as him, aiming to become the CEO's wife someday. David wasn't sure about me working there, but when the current CEO, who is his dad, ordered it, there wasn't much to discuss. My job keeps me really busy, and I often have to go on long business trips. We've been wanting to have a baby, but with our hectic schedules, it's been hard to relax enough for that. Lately, things between David and me haven't been great. We're both really busy, and we end up arguing about small stuff a lot. Just the other day, David got mad at me as I was getting ready to leave for work. Hey Sophie, why didn't you wake me up when I asked you to? I did wake you up a few times, David, but you yelled at me to leave you alone and said you'd wake up by yourself, so I went ahead and made breakfast. What? I never said anything like that. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying. I tried to wake you up at least 20 times, and your alarm was blaring the whole time. You can't imagine what's going to happen if I'm late today. I'll get chewed out by my dad again. Why do I have to be the one who gets yelled at when it's his fault for not waking up? At first, I put up with my husband's unfair scolding, but eventually, I started standing up for myself. This led to a big fight recently where he said, I want a divorce. Thankfully, our in-laws stepped in and stopped things from getting worse. Still, I was getting really tired of him bringing up divorce every time we argued. One day, while I was getting ready for a business trip, my husband came up to me looking upset. Hey Sophie, you're leaving for another trip, huh? My husband always calls my business trips like they're not important. It's not just a trip, it's a business trip. Why do I have to keep explaining this to you? I replied, feeling frustrated. Must be nice always going on trips and neglecting the housework. You're probably just going sightseeing after pushing all the house chores on me, right? Listen, that's enough. This is for your company, you know. Why can't you just accept that it's a business trip? I can't imagine how it's like to be a rookie like you going on a business trip. Being so useful is pretty much just like a trip. What the hell is wrong with you? Can't you tell the difference between a trip and a business trip? Well, it's the truth, isn't it? You say I'm dumping the house chores on you, but you've never done anything around the house when I'm away on a business trip. When I'm not around, my husband only ever orders takeout, leaves the laundry piled up, and doesn't even take out the garbage. Despite doing nothing, his attitude gives me so much stress. Even the divorce drama last time was all because of his personality. Even though we both work and spend the same amount of time on our jobs, all the housework is left to me. On top of that, he acts all superior and domineering, which I couldn't stand. Trying to discuss it with him is pointless as he never admits to any fault on his part. Instead, he always turns it around and blames me. As I continued getting ready for my business trip in silence, my husband started yelling at me again. For goodness sake, the wife of the future CEO shouldn't be taking business trips so lightly. If you're not assertive like me, the other employees will walk all over you. That's exactly why I'm working hard. I need to learn the job and meet with different clients. And yes, being the CEO's son helps. But we also have to acknowledge the efforts of all the employees who work hard to keep the company running smoothly. What are you talking about? The company's success is because of the hard work of all the employees, not just because you're the CEO's son. You should work as hard as everyone else. At those words, my husband got really angry and shouted, What do you mean, work harder? The other day, I overheard some employees talking. They said you always pass off overtime and difficult tasks to others and complain a lot. What? Who said that? I'll fire them immediately. That's not the point. Can't you see that you're the one in the wrong here? Can't you see that you're just riding on your father's reputation? My husband's eyes widened with anger, and he grabbed my bangs roughly. Don't get too ahead of yourself. Who do you think got you this job in the first place? Ouch, let go. You're only able to work at this prestigious company because you're married to me, got it? Refuse the business trip. I won't allow you to neglect our home for some work trip. I've explained it many times, it's for my job. I can't just refuse. Shut up. Stop arguing back. You married me, so you should just listen quietly to what I say. Suddenly, his grip on my hair loosened, and I stumbled back onto the floor. If this argument keeps going, it might end up in another threat of divorce. I managed to push my husband out of the room and focus on getting ready for my business trip. When I come back, I'll have to deal with a week's worth of chores piled up by my husband. I bet the laundry will still be there, and the trash will be overflowing. Just thinking about it made me feel exhausted even before the trip. The next day, as planned, I headed off on my business trip. I focused on my work and didn't let personal issues get in the way. When I got back home after a week, I couldn't believe what I saw. I'm back. The house was sparkling clean, just like the day I left for my business trip. It was a pleasant surprise. Thank goodness. Maybe David finally understood how I felt. Perhaps he had a change of heart and decided to help with the housework. Just as I started feeling relieved that my husband was being more supportive, I saw divorce papers on the table. What? What's this? There was a note next to them saying, I'm going back to my parents' place. We're getting a divorce. Panicked, I quickly called my husband, and he picked up right away. Huh? Did you even read the divorce papers? His casual tone angered me, and I snapped back. Wait, are you seriously talking about divorcing me? Of course. You'd be in trouble if I did, wouldn't you? Don't talk about divorce so casually. Then my husband, sounding smug, said, if you're going to take it that seriously, and started laying out conditions. If you start taking care of the house and listen to me, I might think about canceling the divorce. But of course, no more trips. What? Like you, it wasn't just a trip. Huh? Are you talking back? If you are, then I'm divorcing you. You're such a nag. A nag? He calls me a nag when he can't even do a single thing around the house himself. If he's up for it, so am I. Fine. If you don't want to get divorced, then come and apologize. Do you understand? Holding back my urge to argue, I replied calmly, okay, I understand. You should have listened to me from the beginning. Now come quickly. With that, he hung up. Instead of going to my in-laws' house where he was, I headed to City Hall. I submitted the divorce papers and they were accepted without any trouble. I was officially single again. 3 hours later, while I was packing up at home, my ex-husband came back with his mother, probably fed up with waiting for me. As soon as they saw me, they started hurling insults. Hey, how long are you going to keep me waiting? That's right, you're a failure as a wife, yet you're out having fun. You should be taking care of David. Taking care of? How old is David? He's older than me, isn't he? I fired back, feeling frustrated. As I retorted, their brows furrowed in anger. Shut up, stop being stubborn, and apologize quickly. We're really going through with the divorce. If anyone will be in trouble if we get divorced, it's you, Sophie. You could have been the wife of the next company president, and you're okay with acting this way? And you. If you divorce me, you won't be able to live in this luxurious lifestyle. Are you okay with that? Well, I never thought you were a good match for David in the first place, so I really don't care. At a loss for words, my ex-husband grinned devilishly. Fine, this is your last chance. If you don't apologize now, we're getting a divorce. I'll even kick you out of the company. Decide quickly. At that moment, anger surged through me like a fireball. I had to make him understand the reality of the situation. We're already divorced, you know. What? Just as you wished. I've already submitted the divorce papers and they've been accepted, so I'm no longer your wife. What? Her ex-husband and mother-in-law stood there in shock. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke up. What are you talking about? This must be a joke, right? You wouldn't? Why would I lie? If you don't believe me, you can check the records yourself. No way. Suddenly, the mother-in-law, who had been listening, started to shout. Wait, Sophie, what have you done? You've put divorce on David's record, our future CEO. It was your son who gave me the divorce papers first. All I did was submit them. Stop making excuses. Cancel the divorce right now. Do you understand? I'm sorry, but once the divorce papers have been accepted, they can't be canceled. And I have no intention of canceling anyway. What? The mother-in-law was speechless, and the ex-husband just hung his head in defeat. Ignoring them, I continued, I'm tired of being ridiculed every time I go on a business trip and having to juggle work and housework every day. As far as I'm concerned, you're nothing but a burden. So Sylvie, calm down. Calm down. I'm perfectly calm. What's the point of being married if it's just a title? All you care about is yourself, isn't it? I didn't mean it like that. Do you realize you're losing your status as the CEO's wife? Are you okay with that? I didn't join your company to become the CEO's wife. I don't know how much you've been spoiled, but I didn't marry you to take care of you. Are you really willing to give up this lifestyle? If you just wait a little longer, you could become the CEO's wife. I absolutely refuse to keep being your caretaker. I'm not your mother. Just go and live your life on your own. With an intensity like never before, my husband was completely teary-eyed. His mother-in-law took her turn, stuttering out her final provocation. What if you divorce David? You'll also lose your job. And what if I do? What? I've already informed your father that I'll be quitting the company. What? The mother-in-law and ex-husband's eyes widened in surprise. To confirm, my ex-husband started calling his father. After a few rings, his father answered, and he put the call on speaker. Dad, listen to this. Sophie decided to divorce me on her own. Yeah, I heard. She told me she's quitting the company too. She's so selfish. Can't you fire her immediately with your CEO powers? Well, I guess I should fire someone ASAP. You. Yeah, that's right. Wait, what? Instead of the stunned ex-husband, his mother-in-law turned to her husband. What do you mean by that? There's nothing to explain. David is a liability who doesn't contribute anything to the company. I'm disappointed in his work ethic. Wait, what? How can you suddenly say that about our son? Stay quiet, the father-in-law firmly told his wife. David, your performance at work is lacking. You misuse company resources, make inappropriate advances towards female colleagues, and complain about trivial things like the cafeteria. You're just not cutting it. Do you think I don't know that your subordinates consider you incompetent? No, that's not true. It can't be. I can't protect you any longer, even if you're my son. You understand this, right? Just because you're the boss's son doesn't mean you get special treatment. But that doesn't mean you have to fire me. The only thing I can commend you for is marrying a capable wife. Sophie will continue to work for the company, but you're fired, David. At his father's words, my ex-husband's eyes widened in shock. Unfazed by his reaction, the father-in-law continued, Unlike you, Sophie is diligent in her work and brings in a lot of contracts. She's highly respected by our clients. Many companies have chosen to work with us because of her. But she was only sent on business trips because she's new. Don't be ridiculous. We trusted Sophie, so we gave her more responsibilities. You made fun of her, calling it a vacation or something, didn't you? No, I didn't. Let me make it clear. There's no place for you here until you become independent. Never come back to this house, understood? No way. And so, my ex-husband was disowned by his father-in-law, lost his job, and couldn't even return to his parents' home. When his mother tried to defend him, his father blamed her for spoiling him and gave her a divorce notice too. They used up their savings to live in an apartment, but they struggled to find work, and their unemployment continued. I still received messages from my ex-husband. Sophie, I was wrong. I won't make fun of you anymore. I promise to take care of myself, so please come back. I can't take it anymore. Help me. He was so persistent that I finally blocked his number. I shouldn't have to deal with that mama's boy anymore. On the other hand, I'm still working hard under my father-in-law, who is now the CEO. I have my own team, and I'm enjoying fulfilling days. I'm grateful that my father-in-law is a supportive manager. From now on, I want to pursue my goals without being held back by meaningless family ties. I'm Kiona. I'm 30 years old, and I stay at home taking care of the house. My husband, Aoki, is 6 years older than me, and we've been living with his parents for 2 years. Aoki's parents, Robert and Barbara, are both in their 60s, and they're healthy and full of energy. Barbara, Aoki's mom, really likes going out and having fun. Since I moved in, I've noticed she hardly ever does any chores around the house. Even though she doesn't work outside the home, she doesn't do much inside either. She used to be a stay-at-home mom, but now she leaves most of the housework to me. Sometimes she'll tell me to go have fun while she stays home, but then she'll complain if things aren't done when she comes back. I've been dealing with this situation, trying my best to not get too frustrated. Whenever I try to explain to my mother-in-law that I might not finish everything before she leaves, she brushes it off. She says it's normal to do a lot of chores and criticizes my generation for not being able to handle it, wishing I could be more like Aoki. It's not just the remarks that bother me. Barbara constantly praises Aoki, especially because he works for a big company, which she's really proud of. She often says things like, Aoki works so hard, but his wife isn't doing well. It's like her favorite phrase, and Aoki doesn't defend me. During dinner, Barbara starts complaining about me, and Aoki just responds with a simple, oh really, showing little interest. When I first met Aoki, I thought he was mature because he was older, but things have changed. It feels like he sees me only as a maid. Even when I'm working late into the night, he doesn't say anything to me. Instead, he tosses laundry at me, aiming for my face, and says, here, do this too. I regret marrying someone like him. Since we got married, he's changed a lot. On our first anniversary, he bought a cake, but then threw a pie in my face and laughed. You wouldn't think he's a grown man. But there's one bright spot in my life, and that's my father-in-law, Robert. He's really calm and always asks if I need help with anything. He's the only one who treats me kindly in this house. Since I quit my job when I got married, he's the only person I can really talk to. I've grown to love Robert like a real father. But Robert works during the day, so he's not home much. That means I'm often alone with Barbara. When I talk to Robert, Barbara doesn't say anything, but I can tell she doesn't like it, and her attitude towards me has gotten worse. She started accusing me of making eyes at my father-in-law just because Aoki ignores me. She'd say these things when Robert couldn't hear. I tried to defend myself, saying it wasn't true, but she just brushed it off. Did I touch a nerve? She'd say, acting like I was overreacting. No matter what I said, she always had a snarky comeback. Our talks never really connected. I talked to Aoki about it, hoping he'd understand it was just Barbara's imagination. But he just laughed it off. So now you're into older men too, he joked. It was clear nothing would change. I didn't expect him to help with chores or stop Barbara's teasing, but I never thought he'd say something like that. It was a big shock. I started feeling like I didn't belong in that house. One summer day, Barbara mentioned planning a family trip for Aoki's summer break. At first, I thought it was just her usual desire to go out, but then she surprised me by asking if I wanted to come along. I didn't expect to be invited. I thought they would go without me. When I hesitated, Barbara seemed suspicious and asked if I didn't want to go. I felt uneasy about her sudden invitation. What did she want by including me? I was unsure, but I didn't know how she would react if I said no. That night, Aoki asked me again if I was going on the trip. I replied that I was invited. His response was unexpected. He burst out laughing for some reason. What's so funny? I asked, feeling uneasy. Aoki just brushed it off, saying it was nothing. On the day of the trip, we set off with Aoki driving. Robert couldn't join us right away due to work, so it was just the three of us in the car. Aoki driving, Barbara in the passenger seat, and me in the back. I couldn't see their faces clearly, which made me even more anxious. Barbara suddenly asked if I had withdrawn some money for the trip. I confirmed that I had taken out a few $100s. She seemed pleased at this, which struck me as odd. After driving for a while, I noticed we had passed the inn we were supposed to stay at. Did we just pass the inn? I asked. Aoki replied vaguely, saying there was a tourist spot ahead and we'd check in after seeing it. His smile seemed forced, and I sensed something strange was going on. As we drove away from the inn, the scenery outside turned greener. I let out a quiet sigh, making sure neither Barbara nor Aoki heard me. Eventually, we arrived at a dam. It wasn't very big, and there weren't many people around. Let's get out and stretch our legs, Barbara suggested eagerly. And make sure not to leave anything valuable in the car, Aoki added. I followed their instructions, stepping out of the car. But I noticed Barbara and Aoki hesitating, pretending to be busy inside the car. Once I stepped out and closed the door, I heard the car lock click. Aoki had only left the windows slightly open. Then he burst into laughter. What's going on? Are we staying here for the night? I felt anger bubbling up towards Barbara, but I kept it in check. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my cool. You walked right into that one, didn't you? My husband was laughing so hard he was clutching his stomach. My wallet and cell phone were still in the car. Everything had gone according to Barbara and my husband's plan. Have fun out here, Kiona, Barbara sneered. Maybe you can eat some grass and sleep under the stars. My husband, holding my wallet and going through it, closed the window. His laughter died down, and then they drove off, leaving me alone. Well, they're a handful, and it's hot, I muttered to myself. Even though it was scorching hot and I was at risk of dehydration, I surprisingly didn't panic. An hour later. Why are you here? My husband was stunned to see me in the lobby of the inn where we were supposed to stay. Are you a ghost? Did something happen at the dam? He asked, looking bewildered. Barbara looked like she was about to pass out. I considered teasing them by pretending to be a ghost but decided against it. I'm not a ghost and I'm staying here tonight, I told them, showing them the key to my room. I had already left my luggage there. My husband couldn't grasp the situation and started to get agitated. He thought I had taken the key to their room without permission. What are you doing? Give it back, he demanded, trying to grab the key from me roughly. Just then, a man appeared and grabbed my husband's hand. Sir, Please refrain from causing a disturbance here, the man said firmly. He was about the same age as Robert, but he had a strong build and was taller, making him seem more dependable than my middle-aged, slightly overweight husband. Who are you? Are you staff here? You can't just interfere with a guest like this. I'll sue you for assault. Barbara yelled at the man who had intervened. I apologize for not introducing myself earlier. I am the owner of this inn, the man replied calmly. Hearing this, my husband quickly let go of my hand. I recognized the owner. Back when I was in college, I had visited this area with my friends during summer vacation. It was scorching hot that day, and we got lost on our way to our accommodation. Eventually, we stumbled upon a girl collapsed on the side of the road. That girl was Mary, the owner's daughter. We called an ambulance and stayed with her until help arrived. The next day, the owner visited us at the inn where we were staying and thanked us profusely. He said, "You saved my daughter's life. Thank you so much." He also offered, "We own this inn too, so next time you're in the area, please stay with us. You won't have to pay." Since then, my family and I have visited the inn several times, so I knew the owner well. As he reprimanded my husband and Barbara, he remained polite, but I could sense his underlying anger. In fact, both the owner and I were aware of Barbara and my husband's scheme from the beginning. I had caught wind of their plan 2 weeks ago. Feeling suspicious about their sudden invitation for a trip, I decided to set up a voice recorder in the living room. I targeted times when my husband and Barbara were alone, like when I was taking a bath or doing laundry, and their plan came to light. I know let's ditch Kiana somewhere. It would be hilarious. How about here? There's a gym about an hour's drive from the inn. When I heard their conversation, I was shocked. I immediately called the inn and told the owner everything about the situation I was in and what they were planning. The owner was furious. He himself had once experienced his daughter collapsing in the heat, so he was even more upset. Knowing the situation beforehand, the owner arranged for my pickup today. After my husband and Barbara's car left, he had me ride in the inn show. By the way, the driver turned out to be Mary from that incident years ago. I got my license. Let's go for a drive, she said excitedly. Right now? I asked, surprised. Oh, that's great, I replied. We chatted happily, bought some local specialty ice cream on the way, and arrived at the inn. Even though I knew about the plan and that a pickup was coming, I was still worried for Mary. But she knew the area like the back of her hand. So we arrived at the inn several tens of minutes earlier than my husband and Barbara. You mentioned suing earlier, ma'am, the owner said, looking at Barbara sternly. Yes, I did. It's outrageous to be accused of the opposite, Barbara retorted. I'm sorry, but you're not our guests, the owner replied firmly. What? Don't mess with us. My husband and Barbara both lost their temper. Your and your mother's reservations have been canceled, the owner stated plainly. I added you. Who do you think you are? My husband was on the verge of losing his temper again, but the owner restrained him. Kiana did nothing wrong. We, the inn, canceled your reservations, the owner explained calmly. What do you mean? My husband demanded. If you leave a woman alone at a dam in the mountains after stealing her wallet, wouldn't you be committing a crime? We can't allow such people to stay at our inn. We also called the police. My husband and mother-in-law became even more furious at this revelation. This is no joke. Don't think you can get away with this. I work at our company, my husband protested. This little inn in the mountains. Just then, Robert arrived. Hey, what's going on here? Sensing the tension, Robert looked around and asked for an explanation. Barbara and my husband appealed to Robert, saying the inn staff were rude and they wanted to stay elsewhere. But when Robert heard what had happened, he was furious. You idiots. It was the first time I had seen Robert yell. How embarrassing. I can't believe we're from the same family. You two, get out of here now. My husband and mother-in-law were stunned by Robert's outburst. Where to? Another inn, they asked. But Robert was firm. Wait a minute, that's not possible, Dad, my husband said with a wry smile. But Robert was resolute. You're disowned. Get out. No, don't make me say it again. He pushed my husband away. Then the police arrived and my husband and Barbara turned pale. The owner and I explained the situation to the officer, and I played back the recorded conversation. My husband and Barbara started crying. But Robert intervened. Quiet down. You're disturbing the inn. Officer, please take them away. It's not like that, officer. We didn't think it would be such a big deal. It was just a prank, my husband tried to explain. But the officer's expression changed. A prank? Are you serious? Don't you realize that your little joke could have put someone's life at risk, especially your own wife's? They were scolded harshly. Though they weren't arrested due to it being a family matter, Barbara and my husband looked pale throughout the ordeal. This isn't over. Kirana's feelings will determine your future. Understand. With those final words, my husband and Barbara, still pale, went home. Robert seemed apologetic the entire time. He kept saying, "I'm really, really sorry. I can't apologize enough for not noticing the unpleasant experiences you have been having, for the terrible ordeal you went through today." He also deeply apologized to the inn owner, expressing remorse for the trouble they caused. Interestingly, the inn owner is a businessman who runs several other companies and is also a client of the company where Robert works. Without knowing this, my husband had boasted, "I work for a big company. I'm relieved I was able to hold my husband and Barbara accountable. But it's also frightening to think what could have happened if I hadn't known about their plan beforehand. I hope being scolded by the police makes them realize the seriousness of their actions." After returning from the inn, I decided to divorce my husband. Naturally, I demanded a significant alimony. I hope they learn from this experience and refrain from hurting anyone else in the future. It's quite a turn of events. Robert and Barbara ended up divorcing as well. Robert severed ties with my ex-husband and kicked him out of the house. Due to the incident, my ex-husband was advised to resign from his job. It turns out his workplace behavior had been problematic for a while. Just as he treated me poorly, he had been harsh to his colleagues and juniors, and the HR department was already considering taking action against him. Reflecting on my own actions, I'm disappointed that I mirrored such behavior. My ex-husband, now unemployed, is struggling to find another job. Despite his age, he lacks a solid track record for managerial positions from his previous company, and he struggles to explain why he left. Barbara was also kicked out by Robert and has sought refuge with relatives at her parents' home. However, there are concerns about her spending habits and love for travel. Her relatives fear she might drain their savings if she moves in with them. It might be wise for her to consider finding a part-time job, especially since she's still in good health. So I moved out of my in-laws' house and now live nearby by myself. I'm still friends with Robert, and sometimes I ask him for advice about work issues. Before this, I used to take care of the house and kids, but now I'm starting a new chapter in my life. When I was looking for a job, the owner of a company approached me and asked if I'd like to work for them. He was really concerned about how things were going for me. It seemed like he wanted to find a job for me in his company. I happily agreed to join. I felt really thankful for his kindness. I expressed my gratitude, but he insisted that they were the ones who should be grateful. It felt like I had already returned the favor from before, and now I needed to give something back. The company he recommended me to is well known and treats its employees well. It was a pleasant surprise. Interestingly, it's in the same industry that my ex-husband used to brag about, but this company is much bigger. Everyone there is friendly, and I'm enjoying my days much more now than when I was dealing with marital problems. Wow, can you believe she's not doing anything even though she's about to have her baby? What kind of parent does that make her? When I opened the front door, I saw my daughter Jessica and her husband Thomas. Thomas looked unhappy and started complaining about the dusty floor and dirty bathroom. He seemed to think that because Jessica wasn't cleaning, it was my fault as her parent. I tried to explain that Jessica's pregnant belly made it hard for her to clean, but Thomas didn't listen. Instead, he said he was leaving Jessica because she couldn't keep the house clean. My name is Rebecca, and I'm 54 years old. I work for a big company, and it's just been me and Jessica since her dad passed away. Raising Jessica by myself was tough, but her happiness always made it worth it. Jessica is a kind and caring person with good friends, but she struggled to find a boyfriend. I hoped she'd meet someone in high school or college, but she didn't. Eventually, she started dating a guy she met through a friend, and they got engaged after a couple of years. I was happy for her, even though it meant she'd move out soon. Jessica's husband, Thomas, is older than her and really focused on his career. He often stays late at work or goes out, leaving Jessica to do all the chores. I thought they should share the chores, but I didn't want to interfere too much in their lives. Then, about 6 months after their wedding, Jessica invited me to lunch to tell me she's pregnant. Jessica always loved children, even though she didn't have any siblings herself. She used to talk about wanting a little brother or sister. But since I didn't plan to remarry, I couldn't give her that. Despite being married, Jessica still wanted kids, and she spoke to her belly with love, showing how excited she was to become a mom. Seeing her like this made me really happy. As we said goodbye after lunch, I reminded Jessica that I'm here for her if she needs anything. During Jessica's pregnancy, she kept working, so I made sure to check on her often. But when I got a big work project that meant I'd be traveling a lot, I worried about leaving her. Jessica reassured me she'd be fine, so I threw myself into my work. By the time Jessica was close to giving birth, my project was almost done, and things were calming down at work. I called Jessica to talk about plans for when the baby arrived, but Thomas answered the phone instead. He said Jessica was being useless and that he was bringing her over to my place. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Jessica looking really messy next to Thomas when I opened the door. She seemed different, not even able to muster a smile. Her eyes had dark circles under them, and her hair, nails, and skin looked dry. She didn't look like a woman in her 20s at all. Her hands were cracked and bleeding, and she seemed distant, staring off into space. How could she have changed so much in just a few months? I let them inside and had them sit down. Since Jessica couldn't speak, I asked Thomas what was going on. "Thomas, why is Jessica like this?" I demanded. He seemed surprised and didn't show any shame as he replied, "Are you blaming me? She's the one who slowed down because of her big belly. You know, housework is a woman's job, and she even faked being sick to get out of it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You made a pregnant Jessica do all the chores, even when she was feeling sick. Pregnancy isn't an illness, you know. She even asked me for help with the chores while I've been working all day. Anyway, she's struggling and not able to do her chores. So please take care of her until she gives birth." That's when I realized this man had no clue about pregnancy or being a good father. I couldn't trust him to take care of my daughter. "Okay, I'll take care of her. I can't rely on you to look after her properly." When I told Thomas, he snapped back, "Well, if your daughter's a mess, it's because you didn't raise her right. She doesn't even know how to treat her husband without a father figure. I'm the one suffering here. Once the baby's born, come get it. And in the meantime, teach your daughter how to behave, Rebecca." Before he left, he told me to fix my daughter's upbringing before the baby arrived. Then he just walked away, leaving Jessica behind. I couldn't believe his nerve. I regretted letting Jessica marry him deeply. She just sat there, looking so lost. First things first, I needed to make her feel safe. So I went to the kitchen, poured some milk into her favorite cup with a bit of sugar, and warmed it up. "Be careful, it's hot," I warned her as I handed it over. As Jessica sipped the warm milk, she couldn't hold back her tears. They streamed down her face as she sobbed. I sat beside her, comforting her with a gentle rub on her back, ready to listen to whatever she needed to say. Jessica opened up about Thomas. Despite her pregnancy, he continued going to work parties and leaving her alone when she needed him. He wouldn't lift a finger to help around the house and even demanded she do chores when she was feeling sick from being pregnant. "Hey, get up. You've been lounging around. You haven't done the dishes or laundry," he'd say. Sometimes, he'd come home after drinking with colleagues and make her cook and clean for them. I felt my anger rising, hearing how my pregnant daughter was being treated like a servant. Jessica explained that she didn't want to risk my career, so she put up with it. She even asked doctors to explain to Thomas about the changes her body was going through, but he wouldn't listen. Her own family lived too far away to help, and she'd always put others before herself. I hugged Jessica tightly and whispered, "From now on, it's okay to put yourself first, Jessica. If you need help, don't hesitate to ask. I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner." I gently stroked her head, and she whispered back, "Mom, thank you," before breaking down into childlike sobs. In the days that followed, Jessica's emotional state seemed to worsen as her due date neared. When I came home from work, I found the house spotless. Despite my insistence that she rest, Jessica kept doing chores. She'd even try to move heavy things or fix broken light bulbs. Sometimes she'd pack her bags, scared of facing her husband's anger. I thought she might need professional help, so I reached out to our neighbor, Lisa, who used to be a therapist, and asked for a recommendation for a counseling clinic. "Lisa, hi, you have a moment? I need to talk about my daughter," I said as she welcomed me into her home. I shared Jessica's situation with her and her husband, Kevin, and they recommended a good clinic. Jessica had been feeling unwell, so she started going to the hospital. Lisa and Kevin were worried about her, so when I was at work, Lisa would check in on her. Thankfully, Jessica started to feel better and smile more like she used to. When Jessica's due date arrived, I took her to the hospital as her contractions started. I stayed by her side, rubbing her back and wiping her sweat, cheering her on. When it was time for her to go into the delivery room, I waited anxiously until I heard the baby cry. A nurse told me that both Jessica and the baby were healthy, which was a huge relief. When I went to see them, Jessica was holding our sleeping baby in her arms. Despite my anger towards Thomas, I still let him know that our baby girl was born healthy. When he entered the hospital room and saw the baby, he made hurtful comments. Yuck. Babies look like monkeys, not cute at all. Jessica, you're not even wearing makeup and just lying in bed. You're so lazy. Put some effort into how you look. You're a woman. The nurses and doctors who heard him were furious. They surrounded Thomas, yelling at him for not being supportive. But Thomas just got more irritated and snapped back, "Shut up. My mom was working even right after giving birth. This is clearly laziness. I've never heard of a woman going back to work right after having a baby, and it's unlikely Thomas's mom did that. Something must have twisted his memory. He's never shown any interest in pregnancy or childbirth, so it's no surprise he doesn't understand." Thomas stormed out and didn't even bother showing up on Jessica's discharge day. There were no signs of him coming to pick her up. Concerned about sending Jessica back to Thomas, I offered for her to stay with me, but Jessica insisted on going home, saying it wouldn't be fair for the baby to grow up without a father. Reluctantly, I called Thomas to see if he would come get them. His response was dismissive, saying he was too busy with work and didn't want to deal with a crying baby. Then he hung up. I brought Jessica and the baby home, suggesting she stay with me until she got the hang of parenting. Thomas hadn't bothered to buy any baby supplies, so we went shopping together to make sure they had everything they needed. He hadn't even thought of a name for the baby because work was all he cared about, so Jessica and I chose one together. We named her Sarah. Our neighbors, Lisa and her husband, knew about the situation and helped out with looking after Sarah. With their support, Sarah grew up well. About 3 months after Sarah's birth, Thomas suddenly showed up unannounced to take Jessica and Sarah back. "Hey, I'm here to pick you up. Hurry up, you're always so slow," Thomas yelled from the front door. But Jessica had reached a point where she fully understood how terrible Thomas was and had decided to divorce him. She refused to be controlled by him anymore. "I'm not coming back home. I'll send you the divorce papers," she replied firmly from behind the door. Thomas couldn't believe it. "Are you kidding me? In today's world, a man with a wife and kids is more likely to succeed. What's the point of being married to you if we divorce?" "I'm never getting divorced," he yelled back. My daughter was furious, realizing that Thomas had only married her and had a child for the sake of his career. Before I could say anything, our neighbors, Lisa and her husband Kevin, came out of their house. Thomas went pale when he saw Kevin, who turned out to be his boss. "Boss, what are you doing here?" Thomas stammered as Lisa and Kevin approached. Kevin, clearly disappointed, said, "So, you're Jessica's husband. It's unbelievable that someone like you, who neglected his child for 3 months, turns out to be you. You lack empathy, and I can't trust my team with someone like you. I'll inform the CEO, and your promotion is canceled." Thomas pleaded with Kevin, but Kevin was unmoved. "You don't even want to listen. You only ever cared about your work." Thomas cried, clinging to Kevin in desperation. Kevin didn't allow Thomas to say anything more. Thomas, feeling defeated, dropped to his knees. Kevin, known as a family man both in the neighborhood and at work, couldn't stand to see Thomas treating his family so poorly. It turned out that Thomas had been pretending to be a good husband and father at work to boost his chances of promotion. Quietly, Thomas went home that day, but at the office, he started pestering his colleagues and subordinates, asking them to put in a good word for him with the boss for a promotion. When no one complied, he went straight to the CEO. "Sir, I've worked hard for this company every day. My sales numbers are consistently high. Please approve my promotion," he pleaded with the CEO. But the CEO had already heard from Kevin. "Your performance numbers might look good, but you've been using aggressive tactics to win contracts," the CEO said. Just raising your own numbers isn't enough. A deal that tarnishes the company's image is a failure, even if it's successful. If you can't understand that, you won't move up. I have no more expectations for you. Thomas left the CEO's office looking defeated. The CEO, who occasionally appears on TV and is known for his integrity, made his decision based on more than just reports from Thomas's boss. It was a clear message to Thomas. He lost his motivation for work, started making more mistakes, and was eventually transferred to a regional department with very little work. At least he didn't lose his job entirely. After his transfer, Thomas kept coming to our house, begging for another chance and wanting to see Sarah. Both Jessica and I ignored him, but when he became too persistent, Kevin warned him that he would report him to the CEO, which could get him fired. After that, Thomas stopped bothering us. It became clear that his affection was shallow. When Kevin found out that Jessica was struggling to get her divorce approved, he referred her to a top-notch attorney. The divorce went through smoothly, and she even received compensation for emotional distress. Meanwhile, Thomas was transferred and seemed to be living a quiet, lonely life in a rural area. I heard this from Kevin. Kevin mentioned that the last time Thomas came into the office, he looked completely different. His shirt and suit were wrinkled, he had grown a beard, and he had lost a lot of weight. In the small town where Thomas moved, it's not easy to get to a dry cleaner or convenience store without a car. Maybe he's trying to save on gas or simply can't be bothered, but if he's not using these services, he'll have to take care of himself. Since Thomas never lifted a finger to help with housework and always said it was a woman's job, he probably doesn't know how to do anything for himself. He must regret treating Jessica like a servant now that he's all alone. Perhaps Thomas feels like he's lost everything since the divorce and losing custody. He even started to forget the child support payments he promised to make for Sarah. Whenever Jessica reminds him, he apparently tells her how tough his life is, almost in tears. I advised Jessica to inform her lawyer, and as soon as she requested child support through legal channels, it got paid. So far, we haven't heard anything from Thomas about wanting to see Sarah. If Sarah wants to, we'll reach out. But Jessica and I agreed that we'll pour lots of love into raising her into a fine adult even without a father around.